This is a great episode with Bryan Driscoll, who actually reached out to us at Untrained, and we thought, wow, what a great time for kindness and goodness. And his book is called The Goodness Games.
Bryan Driscoll has been paying it forward as a practice for over 20 years. He's written a book about it. He has a website. He has even gamified goodness. He's going to give us a lot of practical tips as to how we can think about doing nice things for others as a sustainable practice. Can't wait to share with you this episode on the Goodness Game.
Welcome to Untrained. Hi, Whitney.
Hi, Iris.
Hi. We have a guest on today who actually reached out to us, and we thought, wow, we've got to get Bryan Driscoll on because he's got a book and he's got a thought that we're like, right now is the time to discuss this. His book is The Goodness Game. Bryan Driscoll is the first-time author, and Bryan has a passion for inspiring kindness and creating positive change in the world. We need that. 20 years ago, a stranger literally picked him off the street and gave him a plate of spaghetti in a bedroom he had to share with an oversized cat. I'm sure we'll hear all about this. And this small act of kindness sparked an unending desire to pay it forward. So we love that story so much, Bryan. Hello.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Well, we're so glad you're on. Whitney, I usually throw it to you for the first question.
Well, right. Well, I've had a chance to chat with Bryan while you were flying in from your day job. And one of the things that I wanted to start with is just, and it's on your website and it's in your book, is just that very first experiment you ran with that weekend where you just said, I want to see what it's like to just dedicate myself to giving my time to other people, and how that was sort of a origin moment for the Goodness Game. So could you talk to us about that?
Yeah, sure. So it was back like 15 years ago. It was back in 2009. You're talking about when I went to Chicago, right?
Yes.
The thing? All right. So I was sitting there. I've always liked, someone helped me out a long time ago and I owed them money and I can't pay them back. Like, I don't even know who they are to like reach out, right? So I've always had in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, the way I'm going to pay them back is pay it forward. Mm-hmm. And people have always told me, they're like, hey, small acts make a big difference. It's like, okay, everyone says that. Like, is that true? Like, can you actually do something small and see it have a ripple effect? So my brain was racing one night and I hop on a computer and I went into Craigslist. You remember Craigslist?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I hop on Craigslist and I picked a random city. My idea was I'm going to post in a city saying, hey, I'll come to your city, help whoever needs help for the weekend. And I don't want anything in return. I just want them to pay it forward. So the random city I picked was Chicago. I'm from Pittsburgh. So it was like, I don't know, maybe like 10 hours away. Mm-hmm. So I posted it on Craigslist. In the morning, I started getting hit with people. A lot of the people are like, hey, this is a great idea if it's real. But then like 5 people hit me up and are like, they really needed like normal things. Like one guy needed help picking up a car he just bought. He just bought a truck. And this was before Uber. Mm-hmm. He didn't know anybody, didn't have any family around. He needed help picking up a truck. One guy needed a car battery. He just couldn't afford a car battery and he was a contractor. One lady was a single mother, needed help taking down a swing set she got on Craigslist for her kid. So there's 5 different people that hit me up. So I hop in the car on a Friday. I'm like, I'm going to go see what happens. I'm going to go do this stuff and pay it forward and see what happens, right? So I hop in the car on a Friday, drive to Chicago, stay there for the weekend, go do these things. I documented them on an old school camcorder. And when I got back, I tossed it in Windows Movie Maker and made a YouTube video. So I slapped it on YouTube and I'm like, okay, this is cool. Let's see what happens. But people started hitting me up, like leaving comments like, you know what? That inspired me to do X. Or, hey, you know what? That really changed my day. So I'm sitting to myself. I'm like, okay, you can do something and have a trickle effect. Like I just proved it there, just in that small scale. And then I had the media hit me up and they're like, hey, we want to do a story on you. So I told them, I'm like, we can do that, except I don't want it to be me. Like I want it to be about paying it forward and like seeing what happens. So they're like, okay, well, let me check. Cause most places you need to have the person. You don't do anonymous stories. Mm-hmm. So one of the media outlets came back though, and she's like, you know what? I talked to my editor. As long as we can connect with the people you said you helped and prove that it's accurate, we'll do it. So they wrote a story and it went viral like all over the world, which was really cool. And that's kind of where I'm like, okay, in my eyes, I just proved the model. You can actually do something small and impact other people. So a little bit longer story there, but that's basically what that story is.
And how have you carried this? This was 2009. How have you carried this concept? You wrote a book about it. Obviously, it stayed with you. How is it part of your weekly, monthly life? And what does it look like now?
Yeah, sure. So I always look at, I'm pretty fortunate. I always look at like when things pop up, I always try to say yes within reason, right? And the reason I wrote the book about it is because there's certain ways I found, like I kind of figured out, okay, let's make it kind of into a game. Like I say, like you can't say yes to everything. Number one, you'll burn out or you'll get in bad situations, things like that, and you'll just do stuff that you're not really built for. But I would just try to say yes if it's in my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? So like me, I'm the kind of guy, it's like if someone, like I'm friends with someone that works with the homeless, they have things pop up, they need beds or something, I can fund those. But I found out I'm not the guy to go out and like dig holes if you need that. Like I'm not, I pay more with like, I'm like the financial or brainstorming or like connecting helper, not the sweat helper. Like don't call me if you need your brakes changed because I probably can't help much there.
Right. And I love that on your website you have a test to figure out what kind of helper you are.
Right. The helper style guide. So how do I figure out how I'm a helper? Like what
you
kind
do the
of helper
quiz. I did it last night. But
You
I
did?
can tell you, Iris. Yeah.
What kind of helper am I, Whitney?
Well, I think you're probably, you'd like to give everybody gifts. So probably the financial one, but you're also a connector helper. And I think you're also a brainstormer, mental helper.
So Bryan, can you tell us about the helper style guide that you
Sure.
put together?
So here's how I look at it. This is what started it. I did something a long time ago. It's called an energy audit. And basically you take a piece of paper and you draw a line down the center. One half the page is things you do that give you energy. One half are things that take energy away, right? And I do this in business more to find out what I should delegate. But I looked at it in life. It's like, okay, write down everything you do for a week. The things that give you energy are the things you're kind of built for. It's like you can do them and you actually have more energy when you're done. Like me, I don't like cleaning my house. I don't like cleaning. There's some people, they're like, you know what? I pop my headphones in. It's my way to like relax, and they love cleaning. So it's like everyone's different. Everyone's built for something. So you start there. I also put a quiz on the website that you can just go and fill out some questions. It's based around a situation where you're going to feed the homeless. It's like all the different activities are involved in the nonprofit, and you pick the things that you would like doing. It'll pop out answers for you. So you can do it either way. But yeah, I always figure it's like try to find the things that like give you energy because you don't really, you can kind of do them all the time. It's not like work.
Have you ever received stories back from the people you've helped as far as them paying it forward? Did your act help them inspire them, and how have they been inspired?
I have. So the first guy, Mike, that we picked up his truck, he actually came and helped take the swing set apart for the girl we were helping with the swing set. But I kept in touch with him afterwards also, and he like just did things in his life. He's like, you know what, that really inspired me. I did this. He did different things, which was kind of cool too, you know?
Whitney, you know, we work with people, with clients, and one of the things that the science does say that it does help you, you know, it's a stress relief to be able to look at the world in a much bigger way, right? Because we can get very trapped in our minds about things, and being able to help others is sometimes a way of gaining perspective or even a stress relief. Do you find that for yourself, or, you know, what keeps you going with this goodness game, do you think?
Yeah. So, yeah, 100%. Well, you feel better. Like even when I did the thing in Chicago, it's like, I remember driving home. I'm like, wow, I feel like $1 million. It's like it's like a byproduct. It's a chemical thing in your brain anyhow, but it's like a byproduct when you help people, you get to feel better too. So it's a win-win there. One thing I always push forward too, like it's just kind of like a lifestyle now, but like I ran away when I was really young and some lady picked me up on the side of the road and gave me a place. And I can't pay her back. So I'm like, it just started me paying it forward because I couldn't pay her back. And it just became like part of what I do now.
I'm kind of curious if you have found over the years if like men and women tend to have different transactions when they go to help.
I think probably it would make sense for men and women to be different. Like, I know me, I'm more of a direct person. My wife is more empathetic. So she works in a school. She's a paraprofessional, works with special needs kids. She's really good at that kind of stuff, working with kids, empathetic, patient. Me, I'm more the kind of person that's like, hey, you got a problem? It's real black and white. I'm going to try to solve it for you, which my wife also tells me, like, she doesn't want problems solved. She just wants to talk. You know, so you learn different things, but I think men and women are built differently. So yeah, I think they're definitely going to help differently. But it comes back to like what you're built for too. Like some people are built to be empathetic and just listen to the person that's having a problem, just be there and see them. They don't need a problem fixed. They just need to know, they need to bounce ideas or just talk to you.
Yeah. That's sometimes what some people need. And I think it's kind of tricky in today's day and age because so many people are so busy and so overworked and they're not even getting all the things on their to-do list checked off. So can you talk about what you've learned about that sort of almost burnout space and how the helping can fill your cup and have ripple effects, and when it's just sort of time to wait till you feel more energetic?
100%. So in the book, I break it into like 5 roles, right? And I actually have like created goodness budget as one of the roles. And it depends on what kind of helping style you are too. It's like, okay, are you a financial helper? You want to budget a certain amount of your money into a separate account so that you can budget and not go broke. Same thing on energy. It's like, okay, if you want to help people and you're spending energy, where's the time and energy coming from? It's like, are you pulling 30 minutes a day from Netflix? Or are you saying, I'm giving an hour on Saturday to do whatever, deliver Meals on Wheels? It's like you want to intentionally think, okay, where is it coming from? And then fill that time that you're going to donate or help people out with things that you want to do, like that you're built for. And you usually shouldn't burn out then because you're thinking about it ahead of time. I do see, like even myself included, the reason I thought about the budget is because like when I didn't, like a long time ago when I started doing this, someone would need help and I'd donate money, for example. And then at the end of the month, I'm screwed because I gave away my cash I needed to pay my bills. Or I'd get involved with like an organization and it's like, hey, well, can you help with this? And can you help with this? And then you get sucked into, you got like 20 hours a week going and you don't have any time. So I think it's super important to intentionally think ahead of time. It's like, okay, here's what I can give without hurting myself, because you don't want to put yourself in a worse situation.
Yeah. You know, before we have some grand strategy, we can just get out in our communities, in our networks, and just do nice things for people. And that'll help us feel better.
Yeah. There's always stuff going on in the world. It's like, okay, you can still be kind to each other. You can still let the dude that's trying to squeeze in the traffic in front of you. You know, it's like really small things you can do to like make small differences, you know?
I think it's also, I like your intentional, you can plan it out. And one of the things I'm hearing too is that you begin to recognize what you're doing, right? Because these small acts of kindness, sometimes we just do it, hold the door. Or the other day, a friend of mine had her coffee paid for by the person in front of her. And she was like, oh God, this is going to be the worst day. I was on the phone with her. Oh, this is the worst day ever. And then she rolled up and I was listening to the conversation. And the woman's like, well, the person in front of you paid for your coffee. And she's like, wow, maybe this day isn't going to be so bad after all. You have it gamified? So what is this gamified piece of it? That's the one thing I wanted to ask. I was like, wow, it's a goodness games. It's not just like a goodness like every day. It's a goodness games. What does that mean? What is the gamified piece?
Yeah, so I kind of came up with to gamify it because it's not socially acceptable to like talk about helping people, right? Like normally you help people to be kind, you don't brag about it. So I'm like, okay, how can you inspire people to be kind and like do this kind of stuff without writing a book about like, hey, look at me, I did good stuff, right? So do you guys ever see Fight Club?
Yes.
All right, so I was thinking of Fight Club, and also, do you ever hear of 75 Hard, when people work out?
Yes.
Okay, so I was kind of thinking about those when I'm like, okay, you can come up with a game. It's not like a board game, but so for example, rule number 1 is give without remembering. That's like in Fight Club, you don't talk about Fight Club. That's rule number 1, right? When you're playing this game, rule number 1 is you just do things to be kind. You don't go bragging. It's not about making social media posts and like, hey, look at me. The whole point is to help other people, and you don't really brag about it. You don't tell people about it. except for if you're trying to inspire them to play the game. So it's like broke that down too. Rule number 2 is you identify your helping style. It's like you go through the exercise, find out what you're built for. Rule number 3 is not everybody's your assignment. So I found it's like you need to know that your job's not to help everybody. I'm not built to help people that might have a drug addiction problem or like mental problem. I could actually do more harm. So it's like, okay, you need to know not everybody's your assignment. Know your lane. You can connect them with somebody that it is, but like I think that's really important to you. You're not the savior of the world. You need to know that like you need to keep your sanity. You know what I mean? Like not get overwhelmed. 4 is create your budget, which we talked about, and then number 5 is keep score. Like what you're saying, it's like okay. We're aware of what we're doing. So you're paying attention to the effort it took you, like, which is cool. Your friend someone bought him coffee. That's like a super low effort level. And they were able to help someone out of a cup of coffee. It's like easy, you know? And you get to also track on when you're keeping score, how you feel. So it's like, I bought someone coffee. It wasn't a big lift for me. It cost me $4, but it made me feel better too. Cause I know someone's going to have a good day or maybe. You know what I mean? So those are the 5 things. That's kind of like how you gamify it. It's like, because I figure you got to keep score if you're having a game. But that's kind of how I broke it down in my thought process.
I wanted to ask about how because you have kids at this point. So how are you helping your children or not have this goodness game within them too? Are you teaching them some of these values?
Yeah, so I teach them. So I teach them in a couple of different ways. Like say on the financial side, we have one of the Dave Ramsey banks where they get allowance. They put cash into their savings. They put cash into their give account, and then they spend the rest. But I think it's more just them seeing. Like I know I always give money to homeless people when I see them when I'm driving down the road. And they ask me, they're like, hey, well, why do you do that? And you get to explain to them. It's like, hey, you know what? I look at it, if someone's on the side of the road, they're worse off than me. It's my duty to help them, right? So I think a lot with kids, they just see how you live too. You know what I mean? So it's like you can talk about it, but I think they're gonna just judge or learn seeing you hold the door open and be friendly to people, you know?
So Bryan, we are on the Untrained podcast. And so we often ask our guests, what did you have to untrain or what was untrained in you as you built and practiced the goodness game?
You know what? Untrained was that I had control over life. Like it's like, you think you have, so I'm in business, right? I always have these plans. I always have these things and I'm real structured. And it's like, okay, sometimes you just need to take a step back and see what life does, you know? And one thing I've learned too, it's like, I've learned that things kind of come to me. It's like, if I feel in life, like I'm like super stressed, anxiety or whatever, it's like, sometimes I need to take a step back. It's like, I'm doing things I shouldn't be doing. And you have to be aware, like in my head, I'm like, when that happens, it's like I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. I need to take a step back and look. And I'd say that would kind of fall into like untraining because I'm so regimented in like structure and hitting goals and things like that. I have to train myself to like take a step back and look what changed around me to adapt and just be aware versus being so like laser focused on what I'm doing.
And does the kind of putting your focus on other people and where you can be helpful support you in doing that?
Yeah, it's weird. Like I don't really even focus on helping other people. It's more like I just keep my eyes open. It's like when opportunities pop up, I'm just prepared to be able to help versus like actively going out and like trying to find things. You know what I mean?
So it's more like you've trained a awareness and yes muscle and like also tracking in your own mind, you know, your goodness game inventory as well.
Yeah. And also like say, for example, with budget, like every time I get paid, I'll pull a certain percentage of my income and put it into like, I call it like a give account. But it's like, if you have that over there too, like I train myself, it's just a habit now. When something pops up, I can just say yes. It's not like I have to look and be like, oh, you know what? That's really expensive. This money's already budgeted to help people. So I don't need to think about it. It's not like I'm pulling it from in my mind, I'm not pulling it from my personal checking anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Anything else that's changed in terms of your mindset or your sort of mental muscles over the years of practicing this?
Yeah, I would say it's just looking at things. It's like just in general in life, like small things can make a difference, good or bad. So it's like, and so I look at it as like just doing that one little thing or helping that one person out. It's cool for me because it gets me to imagine, hey, maybe that like really helps them out and is the changing point in their life, you know? So it's cool to see that. And then also I look at too, it's like such small things like could be bad too. It's like, so you got to be aware too. It's like, just because you can do small things and make a big impact on a good way, also be aware. It's like, hey, when you do something negative, that could like snowball into something really bad too.
So it makes you more aware of your behaviors and impact on others and yourself.
Yeah. And just in general. Yep.
So reminder to everybody to take that piece of paper. What are the kinds of ways that you give that feel good? And what are the ways that you give to others that are draining? And then start to look for opportunities in your day-to-day life where you can make a positive impact in a small way. Anything else to add for our listeners?
I think that's about it. If they want, they can go to the website,
Great.
goodnessgame.com. We have the energy audit. You can just print it off. The book's on there for free too. You can download it or you can buy it on Amazon, but it is free on the website, PDF. And you can take the Helper's Heart test right online.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Bryan. I love all that you've shared with us and the lived experience from which it comes, and the reminder to all of us right now that this small act of kindness can make us and others feel better. So thank you.
Hey, well, thanks for having me.
So, Whitney, what do we say after every one of our awesome episodes?
Keep untraining.
Keep untraining. And if you like what you hear, we ask you, go to YouTube, watch and listen, go to Apple Podcasts, and we love to hear from you. Put a review in there. Say something to us. We want to know that you're listening. We care about you. We want to make sure that we're hearing from you. Until next time.